Welcome back to Morning Express. It's now just about 17 minutes to 7 local time. It's time for us to have our dawn debate. And joining me in studio this morning, we have Honorable Dan Manzo, who's a Member of Parliament for Makueni. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
We also have Hassan Mohammed, who's the CEO for National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good morning.
All right, now it is official that Raila Amolo Odinga is going to be carrying the flag for NASA come August 8th as the presidential candidate. First of all, Dan Manzo, well, just to hear your comments on that and whether you as a member of Wiper Party are happy with that decision.
Yes, I want to say we are happy with that decision. First of all, it's taken quite a while for there to, for there to be a flag bearer. Kenyans have been waiting. It became apprehensive, and the way things got by now is that Kenyans now say, let's have the team, whatever the team, whoever it is, we will support them as NASA. And you can see out of the 5, those 2, I believe, will be able to unite Kenyans.
Doesn't Wiper Party feel like the MOU that had been touted before was dishonored?
Well, I want to admit that as a lawyer, that particular MOU, just like many other MOUs, had a problem. This time around, we've been very careful because an MOU should be a public document which is registered with the registrar of a political party so that anyone can peruse it and see it. So with the previous MOUs, we did not have everybody on board. This time around, we have a new MOU with 5 of the the top principals of NASA on board, and the MOU has been signed. I've seen it. It is sealed and it is registered. So it's a valid MOU that the Honorable Raila Odinga will be, if he succeeds to be President of the Republic of Kenya, will serve for 5 years, and then after that others will take on. So the formation of his government will be transitional, and then others will take on. So it's a valid MOU now. We don't want to remember the old MOU. It had some flaws. It did not take care of everyone. The new MOU does, and we look forward now into forming government.
All right, now from the language and from what was mentioned yesterday, there sounded to be a lot of confidence in the fact that they've agreed as principals who gets what. I think it was even Kalonzo Musyoka who says, now it is clear who gets what. Yes. Where does that leave Wanjiku? It sounds a bit more like it's the principals who are very confident they've divided the cake equally.
There's been a lot of, debate, soul-searching, and consultations. Wanjiku, I believe you mean the common Kenyan.
Exactly.
And Kenyans have been involved in this debate. Kenya is having a big problem with tribalism, and the current constitution also has its own challenges. So we went back to the original draft, the original Bomas draft, and how it shared, the regions of Kenya, so that we can reach as many Kenyans as possible. And I believe in future, because all of us are thinking of amending the constitution to make it better, that's the way to go, and that's the way things will look in future. Mm-hmm. So we are going to begin by a practice to make sure that we take care of every Kenyan and to bring as many Kenyans on board as possible. The current structure is favoring 2 regions of Kenya in exclusion of others, but we are now able to expand to as many Kenyan parts as possible.
All right, and we'll come back to that in just a bit, but let me bring in Hassan Mohammed, who's the CEO of NCIC, and we've been looking at the primaries and the way they've been going so far, but unfortunately we've had areas that have been very volatile and even almost breaking into full-blown violence. First of all, your thoughts on that, and if that can be stopped now before we get to August 8th.
Yes, I think one of the problems we've had during this time is the confidence people have had in the system, in the preparations which have been made by the parties, and how open and transparent and how free they were. So I think as we approach elections, we're going to have professionals manning the elections. So things probably are going to be better because the professionals are going to run things, I think, better than the way the officials in the primaries have been running. Mm-hmm. So there will be more confidence in the system, and I think that makes people a little bit,
settled.
Yes, settled, yes. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things. But I think also many institutions which are charged with the preventing violence have, of course, been preparing for a long time. They were there during the primaries, but they're going to also take lessons from the primaries now and improve things. One of the things we are going to do, of course, is to go back to the mapping, because there are areas which are probably now we're going to categorize them into cold spots, areas probably where we think the contest is already over, like maybe some parts of Central Province, and then categorize others as warm spots, and then we will have hot spots, certain areas where we think the contest is not yet over. Areas where we have seen violence now, like as you mentioned, Migori, Homa Bay, probably places like Mombasa. So we're going to put more efforts in those areas. But I think all institutions are gearing up, especially the institutions like IBC, of course, is training a lot of police officers on
the ground.
election.
What power does NCIC have should there be violence? What power does NCIC have to, ensure that there is peace maintained in the country?
What NCIC is doing is working with other institutions to, first of all, we're setting up the early warning systems. That's one of the most important things we are doing. We have recruited monitors all over the country. We have monitors in every county, and we are also working with other institutions which have monitors. So on an hourly basis or even minute by minute, we'll be receiving information, early warning information. And as we receive that information, we'll be feeding with institutions which are supposed to be doing, carrying out early response. Security organs, for example, the national government is expected to maintain security. So we'll be working closely with those institutions to give them information on as we receive.
Okay.
The other thing we are doing, of course, is preparing people, like the youth and whatnot, between now and August. And we started early enough. Even last week we had some training programs and forums for the youth. So we are going to continue with that. We are also going to try and recruit more mediators so that we can have people who can come in.
All right. Mheshimiwa Manzo, what responsibility do political parties have to ensure that they do their part, that we do not get to where we were in 2007?
Yes, politics are very competitive, and the expectations of aspirants and their supporters are usually very high. So the moment you do not take care of that, and the moment there are no proper structures to make sure that the nominations are free and fair, you are likely to affect people's emotions, and people are likely to express themselves or react in a certain manner, at times which results into violence. So political parties have a mechanism whereby you sign a code of conduct that I will behave like this, and then the moment you don't keep that conduct, then you could be punished. But unfortunately, the punishments have not been severe, and the method of enforcement is not really clear.
Like it's not very effective.
Yeah, because if you say you pay 3 million shillings, and then you have not been disqualified as a candidate, whether you pay the money or you don't, the results is never seen. Or somehow it just slithers away.
You can get away with it, because as much as 3 million shillings is a steep amount, one could still pay and come back.
And come back and go on with the elections and probably, repeat the violence. So I think we need, the law has to be amended to be able to capture that, so that if you breach the code of conduct, then you are disqualified as a candidate. If you know that you are going to be disqualified, like you can see now, a lot of candidates are very fearful of the law of, bribes and donations and participating in Arambis. They know, including the president, who allegedly is above the law. He's very careful not to participate in the Arambe, because it amounts into disqualification. So I think disqualification should be the ultimate, and to make sure that the candidates is careful not to cause violence, and the supporters are careful because they know they will lose the candidate altogether. So if we do that, then we will reduce the cases of violence. There must be discipline. Of course, without forgetting that the rest of the law is still there. If you cause bodily harm or injury to somebody else, you can still be taken to court. That person can still pursue a civil claim against that particular individual. So there must be methods which are preventive, so that people behave themselves during that time. It is not just common in Kenya, it is all over the world. Politics and competitiveness bring in a lot of emotions, but we must have mechanisms at party level whereby there is discipline. There is also, at now the national level, or where now it is the general election. If one causes violence or bribes or other things, there is going to be an election petition. We have seen people removed from parliament, and a by-election going on, and them losing their seats if they are found guilty of such offences. They are also likely to be removed from the voters list and banned from participating in elections for 10 years. That seems to be effective at that particular level, because eventually what you're looking for, you lose it.
All right. Mr. Mohammed, I'm sure as NCIC you've been following up on what has been going on, not just during the primaries, but even from before. Would you say that our leaders have toned down their language? Because one of the things that can spark violence is the language that is used, language that would make people get on edge. Would you say their language has changed?
To a great degree, I think a lot of things have changed. People are a bit careful now. And especially, I think, because they know that there are a lot of people who are watching them, who are listening to them. But you never know, they can relapse, because these are politicians. They can sometimes lose their control, and therefore we have to keep our guard so that we keep them on their toes. But as I said, to a great degree, we have not handled cases of hate speech so far, and I think we are satisfied.
Okay, and should there be cases of hate speech, does NCIC have the power to ensure that these people are dealt with accordingly?
Yes, NCIC has the powers. We are supposed to process the cases and then pass on the files.
But so far, one might argue and say that we have had cases where hate speech has been quite evident, but nothing has been done.
We have, what people talk about is the number of cases which we have lost probably in court, and there are technicalities in some of these cases. And also, from that experience, we are trying to assemble our people together so that we can improve the situation. Last week, we had all the prosecutors who handled all these cases, from the Director of Public Prosecution and also our investigators. They were together in Machakos to look at some of the cases which we have lost and the reasons why we have lost these cases. So we are trying to review those things. But there are technicalities, especially in the Evidence Act. Some of the cases which we have lost, recording was done by other people. We are expected to, those people who did the recording are supposed to appear in court.
Yeah, and that whole system of having, does it make it difficult for you to catch up with the culprits? Because some of the requirements for it to be proved that that was done are so, almost making it impossible for you to get the culprits.
That's why we are deploying more people now. We have almost 114 cohesion monitors all over the country who have given
recording devices.
We have also trained hundreds of police officers, and we're going to continue training more police officers as we continue. We're buying more equipment and giving some of it to the police, because police are everywhere. They go to the rallies, and therefore they are not just supposed to maintain law and order there, but they are going to also be taking evidence. So we'll have more people on the ground to rely on, other than relying on people like you, the journalists, or relying on the media houses.
All right, Honorable Manzo, one of the reasons why maybe we have violence coming up again and again, or that risk of violence, is because maybe at the party level, there is no structure to ensure that parties can rein on their own members, to ensure that they do not become the culprits. Because I think the parties also have a huge responsibility to ensure that their members do not spark violence.
They do, and violence is not good. And Kenya has gone through a serious experience, and I think it was an important experience in 2007 and subsequent trials at The Hague. All Kenyans monitored and moved on that. And though no one was convicted. It's a way of learning, and now Kenyans know if you cause violence from your party level to the national level or to the tribal level or intertribal level, you are likely to be prosecuted. Up to today, Kenya is still part of the international court. There was efforts by some politicians and political parties to pull Kenya out of The Hague. But I think Kenya belonging to The Hague is very good, or to the International Criminal Court.
It forces us to be accountable.
Yes, it makes us accountable. And suppose one time we have a rogue leader or president or somebody who uses violence to ascend to power, and we've already pulled out of that. So at international level, we can get somewhere. At the local level, the courts seems to have, the cases seem to have failed in a large way, because no one was charged with that violence locally here. The evidence was not sufficient, so the cases never got anywhere. And a lot of them were, stopped even before they took off out of political pressure, so that so-and-so cannot be in with murder or, violence and things like that. And as you said, the Evidence Act and the new technology, because if you record somebody, then the person you recorded should be the one to give evidence. The moment it is another person giving evidence of what was recorded by another, it becomes hearsay, and it may not be watertight enough to warrant a conviction. And therefore, any of the suspects gets away with it. We saw the recent cases of incitement and hate speech, where now the Pangani 6, you remember. I believe the government used, extra methods without a backing of the law. It was just, some force of some sort to cause these leaders to be locked up without a law or without a method of making sure you are following the law. They would have pursued it in a constitutional court. But the Kenyans seem to be satisfied that we are happy both, leaders from both sides of a political divide have been locked up and detained,
despite the fact that it was there was no legal evidence.
Yes, there's no legal evidence or even a mechanism to use the law, even following the current law, even the way the court did it. Just locked them up, and a few days of detention without trial or be jailed, sentenced before a trial, because that's what it was. Caused panic, and a few other politicians restrained themselves, and no one wanted to go through that experience because they knew now it can be repeated. But in future, we need a proper law.
Watertight laws that can take care of that. Are there internal party structures that can rein on their party members to ensure that they do not become the perpetrators of violence?
There are, and one of them is rejecting the candidature of a violent leader or somebody who goes to power by force or by using violence, and it's quite prevalent. And I believe the mechanism is not sufficient. The campaign is rough. Competitors, when you see candidates competing in a party, it can get very rough. You saw what happened in Murang'a. You saw what happened in Kiambu. You saw what happened in Migori. And even here in Nairobi, you could see the youths are charged, and even, some, they look high on something, and it's like, if you don't listen to us, it's going to be rough. So a lot of candidates are scared by this violence, and a lot of times we end up with leaders who may not be what Kenyans are looking for.
All right, Mr. Mohammed, what's going to be done differently? They say failing to plan is planning to fail. And of course, as much as we would not want to think we're going to get into violence, we must prepare. What is it that NCIC is going to do differently?
I think NCIC has been preparing for a long time. Other institutions like the security organs, for example, the national government, has released the standard operating procedures, and officers have been put on their toes now, And therefore, NCIC, working with other institutions, are going to be alert. That's one of the things I can tell people. But one of the things I would like to appeal to politicians and the parties is that at the highest level, you know, at the level of the leaders of those parties and whatnot, they should come out openly and renounce violence and tell those people the consequences of that. That is going to give some kind of assurance. But as I said, institutions which are charged with preventive violence, like NCIC, like the national government security organs, I think they are preparing themselves. These primaries was good for us to, you know, there are lessons to be learned from those primaries. But as you had the minister, for example, Nkaiseri, giving his statement, the parties were given a lot of leeway, you know, to deal with some of those situations. As we approach the elections, of course, the IEBC is going to take charge. And I know that IEBC is also training a lot of police officers on election offenses. And therefore, all these institutions working together, I think we are going to...
What are some of the lessons possibly? You've just mentioned that the primaries are a good place for everybody to learn. What are some of the lessons that NCIC has learned from the nominations that possibly would help us now when come August 8th?
Yes, one of the things is sharing information between NCIC, between those who are who are dealing with early warning and the institutions which are security organs which are supposed to carry out response. There has been some working, institutions have been working together, but they have to come together now and plan together and work more closely, so that information can be shared and the response can be very fast.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Manzu, Honorable Manzu, maybe your message to Kenyans as we wind up. What is your message to Kenyans as we approach August 8th? We remember the words of George Saitoti not too long ago, and he said that there are times that comes that the country is bigger than any one of us.
Yes, and I want to agree with you, because Kenya is not just for politicians or for the people who are here. It's even for the future generations. And, you know, a culture of, you know, tranquility is important, and a proper attitude towards elections procedures and election processes. You know, during election time, now we were doing the primaries in different regions. In the next 100 days or so, it's going to be a tough campaign on the presidential candidates, and definitely it's going to be charged. So I think we all need to know that we have a responsibility to take care of the future of Kenya, and also to create a good culture which will live for the future generations, so that there is no need to fight over elections, and that leaders should know that if you lose blood, or you lose people because of elections, then you are beginning to lose a nation. And we need a cohesive nation. We need peaceful elections. Let the best person win. One does not need to win by force. But also, most important is to have proper law, ordinarily, you know, done by parliament, initiated by government through the leader of majority, also initiated by the minorities. Any one of us can bring amendments to the law or bring proposals to the law, so that law binds us together in future, and people know that there are dangers. You notice that even in the developed nations and democracies like America, you could see that the election was very competitive in America, and you could see the language used at times and the threats
very divisive.
And it's even worse when you come to Africa, where you have tribalism and different tribes, and you know, jostling, and people thinking one tribe is always ruling the others. We need to look at a future whereby all Kenyans are equal, and any Kenyan can lead Kenya.
All right, Mr. Mohammed, your message to Kenyans.
Yes, our message to Kenyans is that they should not accept to be misused. At the end of the day, certain people will go to parliament or will go to those positions. There may be people from their tribes or people they prefer, but they should not allow those people to get into those positions through violence or shedding other people's blood, because that is going to haunt you for a long time. So don't accept to be used. especially the youth. I would like to tell them not to accept to be used. You know, quite a number of them are being fed with, of course, as Mheshimiwa said, intoxicants and what to cause mayhem. But I think let them also be told that the law will deal with them. And once the law catches up with them, that politician or that person who was using them cannot be able to help them. So it's them to face the law. They should be very careful during this time.
All right. Thank you very much, Hassan Mohammed, CEO for NCIC, and Honorable Dan Manzo, who's Member of Parliament for Makueni, for joining us this morning. And we wish you all the best now that we have the flag bearer for NASA named. And of course, the main message that we want to make sure is heard by all Kenyans is that peace must be maintained. It is not worth your life to be lost or to get into situations where we put our lives at risk. We're going to take a short break right here on Morning Express, but do stay with us. We'll be back with Hot Topics.